Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. My name is Joe Darlene, and I'm part of the California MBA Mortgage Technology and Marketing Committee. And today we have a huge, great presentation, and we're gonna have a lot of attendees today that'll be joining us. We've also recorded this presentation to send out later. But today's session is an innovative social media solutions that powers lead generations. And what we're going to be talking about today is the advances in social media leads, how effective leveraging of social media to generate high quality leads, utilizing the outsourced call centers to sustain lead momentum, and how CRM platforms play a central role in creating a powerful marketing tech stack, which is awesome. And today we have some amazing speakers with us. We have John Brumman, who's the Senior Managing Director of SunWest Mortgage. He is our keynote speaker today. We have Lynn Cook, who is the Vice President of Sales from Optify Now. I think that's Executive Vice President, if you don't get me wrong there, Lynn. And we have Cassidy with us, Cassidy Krell, and he's the co-founder of C-Squared Social, another highlight person we have here to introduce you to today. Today, this presentation is being sponsored by our nice friends at Tavant. Tavant Fin Leads on Salesforce App Exchange is their new service. Tavant Fin Leads is a Salesforce-based customer acquisition and engagement platform and one-stop shop solution for marketers and loan officers to enterprise lending businesses. It empowers customers to create one universal workspace for loan officers to intuitively collaborate and engage borrowers through an interactive loan application journey. Leveraging Tavant's Fin Leads has enabled early adopters to improve sales productivity and increase per loan origination applications rate by 30% in the first 3 months. The solution connects over 120 third-party data and service providers. This includes connections to consolidate leads from a myriad of sources, improves loan application conversion by pulling data from credit, income, employment, and asset data providers. Fin Leads enables omni-channel experience so that loan officers are able to engage with consumers online, through email, text, and chat, and providing the ability for loan officers to stay in touch with borrowers through a complex and financial transactions. Thank you, Tavant. Okay, this is a presentation by Media Partners, and Mortgage Media is our website. Please visit us there. We're part of the California MBA Mortgage and Technology Committee. To kick off our presentation today, I would like to turn it over to Cassidy and Lynn Cook. If you could take it from there, please.
All right, thanks, Joe. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you, California MBA. We really appreciate this opportunity to share this webinar with you. I mean, you know, we've been big supporters of the California MBA for a long time. Really appreciate everything they do for the industry and for mortgage lenders all across the nation. So today, as you know, the sort of the pitch here is that, you know, social media marketing can be used to generate very high quality mortgage leads. And I think that's very much true. But, you know, what we really want to talk about today is, you know, within the context of using social media marketing, it's really, we want to share a case study, right? Optify Now and C-Squared Social have been working with SunWest Mortgage for a while. And the results that we've seen in terms of the partnership, beyond just the technology, but really we want to give this case study to share with everyone on the call to show you, you know, how social media marketing, how CRM can combine together primarily with really a very innovative thought leadership. And that's really what we think about when we talk to, you know, John Brumman, you know, someone who is intimately familiar with the mortgage industry, is intimately familiar with technology in the mortgage industry, and understands that innovation is really what's driving this story here. So, you know, I want to hand it off to John. He'll talk about sort of this case study of how he's utilizing our technology. And then, you know, Cassidy and I will come in and talk a little bit about our technology, but really, you know, talk about it from that standpoint of how we partner very closely with our clients to be successful. So, John, if I could hand it off to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, CMBA. Appreciate the opportunity to talk here. I'm going to go into just a quick background about myself. I know it's not on the slide here, but been in the business for about 27 years. Spent the past 20 years in production management for the most part. I did a 5-year stint as the CTO for another mortgage company that I worked for, quite a while back. So I've got some of that experience as well. But my primary focus has been on wholesale and distributed retail production over the last, 20 years. So just to talk a little bit about SunWest, SunWest has been primarily known in the marketplace as a wholesale lender, one of the price leaders. And a couple of years ago, Pavan Agrawal, the CEO of SunWest, decided that he wanted to change that a little bit, enhance that. And so for us, it was, how do we create a sustainable, controlled growth in wholesale and retail? 95% of our business 2 years ago was wholesale refinance business, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But we want to be more diversified. And so we basically employed several new strategies to change the DNA of our company in 2018 with the goal of, 50-50 wholesale to retail. We'd like to do 70% purchase to refi business. Our goal is $10 billion a month. And this is, back in 2018. And, we want our retail originaters to focus on purchase business primarily, but still taking advantage of the refi business. So, and then, wholesale, more purchase business, obviously, we're going to get there through better service. So, over the last 2 years, we've increased our production by $1 billion a month with these new strategies. And I'll get into this in a little bit, but a lot of this has to do with, technology and, marketing and those types of things. So, our goal ultimately is to do 70% purchase, 30% refinance business as a company. Would you mind going to the next slide, Cassie? So I just want to talk about, some of the challenges that we face in the industry today. And a lot of this is kind of pre-COVID, obviously that changed everyone's world. But so some of the challenges that we've had in distributed retail specifically, and how do we, remain relevant and maintain profitability as the company grows and as originators, evolve. So some of the challenges that we face today are margin compression, right? So we're competing against the big consumer direct companies. There's a big migration, there has been pre-COVID, up to the broker community from mortgage bankers. It's been difficult to recruit teams, trying to avoid litigation and transition of recruiting teams. The old school way of doing business has changed quite a bit. You've got brick and mortar and overhead and the layers of management. And some of those things, as originators, how do we get away from paying Zillow and establishing MSAs and all those factors that go into increasing the consumer price? So that's kind of the challenge that we're faced with today as an industry is, how do we compete against that in the future? And so, our opinion is that the future of our business is whoever gets to the consumer first wins, right? So, some of the really big mortgage companies in the industry, I'm not going to name any names, but, they have real estate companies as well. And I think they've realized that really the consumer, the purchase consumer is the same for both the real estate companies and the mortgage companies. And so who gets to that consumer first controls the transaction. And, we're not going to, SunWest specifically is not going to get into the real estate business, but, that once you cross that line, it's kind of hard to return from that. So how do we solve these challenges in the next 5 years? And what do we need to do to remain relevant? So in our world, we realized that we needed to learn consumer direct methodologies because we were primarily distributed retail and wholesale, right? And so for us, that is, what are the marketing strategies that we're going to employ? And so we started learning these things. And, one of the things that a lot of people do that are in consumer direct is they buy leads from, the usual suspects, the lending trees, realtor.com, Zillow. I mean, not to name names, but there's well-known companies that a lot of mortgage companies buy leads from, especially the consumer direct companies. And so we went through that process, and you figured out, okay, that's this is how that works, and then you realize, oh, we should probably generate our own leads as well, right? So that we're not competing against the biggest mortgage companies in the country on every lead that we buy. So we went down this road of how do we create exclusive leads, and for us that was leveraging social media and learning how to do social media marketing. And so we went on a kind of a mission to figure out how to do that. And it's a learning experience for most of us. Most people in the mortgage industry are not social media experts, at least not that I'm aware of. I'm sure there are some, but and we personally, we didn't want to hire a team of people and try to figure out how to do social media advertising. And so we went out and found, a company that was already, experts at doing that. So, and I know that I'm not following the slide exactly the way it's laid out, but I'm just kind of giving you some of the thoughts that are in my head. And so, what we've learned through this whole process of consumer direct methodologies is that really the conversion rates are, if not the most important, one of the most important factors in, consumer direct and buying leads and generating leads, and how do you convert the leads. And what we found to be true is that, typically when you generate a purchase lead, you're going to close, industry-wide, this is not SunWest, but industry-wide, what I've been told is 1% to 2% of those leads are going to fund. They're going to close. Refinance leads, obviously, that's a little different, depending on the market, depending on, different factors, you're going to close a higher percentage of those leads. But really the key is, how do you manage that lead? How do you nurture the leads? If you're going to go out and get into this business, how do you've got to know how to do that, and you have to nurture the leads and continually nurture them as you continue to market. And so we started looking
John,
for
John,
yeah,
I just had a question for
yeah.
Joe. You came up with a couple great stats that are not on your slide, and I wondered if you just elaborate on those again. Tell me the difference on conversion that from your experience from purchase lead to closing. What were those numbers again?
Yeah, so if you talk to lead companies about, at least from my perspective, right? When I ask a lead company, what's your closing, your conversion rate? Nobody's going to give you an exact percentage because it really depends on the mortgage company that is buying
Absolutely.
the leads. But what they typically tell you is, 1% to 2% on a purchase lead is going to close on a loan on a lead that you purchased.
Right.
So if you do a decent job, the average across the industry, they say, is 1% to 2%. And I figure that the lead companies are probably the best source to give me that information. So I don't have facts. That's just kind of what I'm told, right? I'm sure that there's companies that convert lower and convert higher than that. And then on the refinances, you can convert at a higher rate because they're more immediate, right? And so you can close anywhere from 2.5% to 5% of those, I think, pretty consistently if you do a decent job.
Oh, great.
Just depends on how you work the data.
Thank you.
Yeah. Feel free to interrupt me at any time if I'm any questions like that. So, we needed to find a lead management system, and for us, it was nurturing customers, past customers, leveraging a call center, and how do we take all these leads in and make sure that we're maximizing our marketing spend and our efforts on this. And so for us, just I know this isn't all on the slide, but for us, purchase business is important, right? Because we feel like, purchase business is a sustainable, scalable business model. So we've been trying to figure out how do we buy purchase leads and generate purchase leads that we can close? Typically, if you're, a call center trying to close purchase leads all over the country, your conversion rate is going to be really low because you're going to lose a lot of those leads to the local realtors. And so I'll get into this in a minute, but we've kind of created a solution for that. So purchase is one of our strategies. Refinance obviously is another strategy. But having all this data and all this information and trying to figure out, how do we manage these leads effectively? And so we went on the hunt for a lead management system. We have our own LOS. Sunwest has has its own proprietary LOS, but we don't have lead management software built into our LOS. And so we went on a search, and we're a multifaceted organization. So we were looking for a lead management system and a CRM in one, right? Typically you need, 2 to 3 different systems to manage leads and manage the loans that are in process and close loans. And we really didn't want to integrate 3 different systems. So we were looking for one system that could do all of it. We've got wholesale and retail. We didn't want to go out and have to hire an IT team of people to support our CRM, because some of the systems that are out there, you've got to go out and hire teams of people just to support them. And we didn't really want to do that. Our development focus is really on our LOS. And so, we found Optify Now, and that's who we use, and they're a great partner for us. And they do they accomplish all of our needs, right? So, we didn't have to hire any experts that knew how to program the system. We didn't have to, spend 6 months integrating it. It was a very quick and seamless process. They do almost everything. They're very flexible. They work within our business rules. We have a couple of marketing people that work with them, but aside from that, they manage all of the credentials, all the campaigns, and all of that. So for us, Optify Now was the best solution. Because it handles wholesale, it handles retail. We even do recruiting using their software, and we've integrated it with our CRM, and it was very, very seamless, and it was very easy. So that's the system that we use. So every lead that we generate or we buy goes into Optify Now. And so one of the things that we put into Optify Now are the social media leads that we generate. And excuse me, I'm got off track here a little bit. But so social media for us was, let's not try to reinvent the wheel and build our own social media team. Let's go out and find somebody that, like I said earlier, that's kind of already doing it. And we wanted a proven company that we knew could manage our social media needs effectively. We needed a company that could handle all of our channels and kind of work within our, business model and do it at a reasonable price, right? So I came across C-Squared and a couple of years back, and we've had a tremendous working relationship together, and we've integrated C-Squared with Optify Now seamlessly. So every lead that we get from social media immediately pops into Optify Now, and then we can start all of the other campaigns that go out of Optify Now. So we start the third-party call center. We have a third-party call center integrated with Optify Now that calls on every one of our leads. We can send text messages and emails to our leads, and then we can nurture them for as long as we want. So we've got at least a year nurture campaign built out for every lead that we buy or generate. And we're using C-Squared for consumer leads and for recruiting. And, they've been amazing. They're very responsive, reasonably priced, and they're our partner. Optify Now is our partner. We look at these relationships on both sides, from Sunwest and Optify Now and C-Squared. It's a big partnership, and it feels that way. It's been really, really, I'm not trying to sell anybody here. It's just for us, it's been a really great experience. And so, kind of to finish off where I started with this, we've Sunwest talking about the challenges of distributed retail, and they're not, they're just challenges that need to be overcome. We love distributed retail. We love wholesale. we're going to continue to do those things, and we're trying to figure out ways to, to continue to do distributed retail by lowering the cost to produce a loan. And we can do those things because of our technology and some of the back office tools that we have. But another channel that we've developed to kind of take advantage of the consumer direct methodologies and distributed retail, just traditional distributed retail, is what we call Homebuyer Connect. And there's a couple companies out there that do different variations of this. And I'm sure that some of the people on this call may be aware of them, and it's a little different for everybody. But what we do is like I said earlier, we found that, taking a purchase lead in a call center and trying to close those loans all over the country is difficult, because you lose at least like 80% of those loans are lost to the local realtors, right? So we decided that we're going to build a channel that we can go out and we can get these borrowers, we can get them pre-approved, and then how do we improve our conversion rates? How do we turn those leads into a value proposition, right? So what we do is we pre-approve all these leads and loans internally, and then we give the loans once they're at that point. They've been nurtured for either a day or a year. These consumers take a long time sometimes to nurture. Some of them are quick, but we nurture them. And then once they're pre-qualified internally with our sales team, we give them to a local loan officer, so that we can kind of solve the problem of not having a local presence. Your local loan officer can meet with the client, they can meet with the realtors, they can make everybody feel comfortable about it. And that's kind of how our Homebuyer Connect division works. And for us, that's part of our future, And so we've got wholesale, we've got, distributed retail, and then we've got Homebuyer Connect, and we operate them as different channels. And so we think Homebuyer Connect is going to be, extremely successful. We're doing well in the distributed retail right now. And Homebuyer Connect is really kind of, for us, the evolution of the industry and where things are going. We think, we don't know everything. This is just what we think, but that's how we're using Optify Now, C Squared, marketing, social media, and a CRM to kind of position ourselves for the future of the industry. And then we also use it in wholesale. I mean, we use it in wholesale, competing with the big guys in the industry, who most of us probably on this call know. There was a price war going on a couple of years ago that, some of these companies were operating at kind of a net loss to capture the servicing revenue. And, it's hard to compete with that, right? So how do we do that? Well, we need to be more efficient. We need to, be more engaging with our consumers. Our brokers, our customers. And so we use Optify Now for wholesale as well. We use it to, maintain contact with our customers for status notifications, follow up. Our model at Sunwest is to have internal account executives. We don't have a lot of external account executives. And we also use social media for wholesale, because you can target specifically, you can target people through using social media. You can target brokers. And so, I know I just rambled on for a long time, and I probably, gave too much information all at one time, but that's kind of, my pitch for how we're leveraging all this technology to improve our company and our production.
That's awesome. Great
Thanks,
job.
John. Cassidy here. I guess I'll pop in and hopefully I ran that slide deck okay for you, John. I know that I was kind of in control of your destiny there with the slide deck, but so I'm Cassidy over at C Squared Social. I'm one of the founders of this organization, and we've been around for about 8.5 years. So just to give a brief background, and then I'll explain this chaos of arrows that's going on here. But I've been doing this for about 8.5 years in the advertising space, specifically in social media. Our company really got its start working at a B2C level. So we worked with companies like TCBY and Mrs. Fields and brands like that was really how we got started. We later got introduced to a few other verticals like franchise development. So our company works with brands like Arby's and Little Caesars to help with their development from a B2C and franchise development standpoint. And then I got introduced to John, which was really the catalyst for getting into the mortgage world, and then ultimately ended up with the introduction with Lynn. So I come from sort of a little bit of an outsider view in the advertising space, which I think is actually good, because what's interesting to me is the parallels between mortgage and franchise development and some of these other industries where they were very similar. So let's take franchise development first, for instance, like Which and Arby's and Little Caesars. That industry depended almost predominantly on portals, which there's nothing obviously wrong with that, but mortgage dealing with that in the same way. And then we saw kind of social media, Google ads, those type of things start to take hold in that industry, which ultimately has led to a major shift in how people generate prospects that are non-shared and whatnot in that industry. So I see so many parallels, and from what I see, it looks like mortgage is, is kind of following the footsteps of so many other verticals that we work in right now. But to give you a little bit of sort of a background on how this all works, we put together a little bit of a flow chart. So what our company does for John at SunWest and others is we run ads that appear on social media. So they appear on a number of different platforms, which I'll get into. We get either prospects that engage and submit their information because they're interested. If they don't quite get to the submission process, they go into this remarketing section here, which kind of works like, if you put something in your shopping cart on Amazon and it follows you everywhere you go until you finally give in and say mercy. So that's how that works. And then once they submit their lead information, that flows right into Optify Now, which triggers an SMS sequence, email sequence, potentially a call center sequence, until it gets to the LO engagement period. So all of this being completely automated from the standpoint of somebody hearing about your opportunity, whether it's refinance, purchase home loans, or even recruiting, all the way from capturing them into Optify Now to those sequences that take place ultimately to the engagement. So that just gives you a little bit of an understanding of the workflow and how it works. I'm not going to make this sales pitchy at all with you guys today. I'm sure you guys get that all the time. So I'm just going to give some educational piece to this as well to help everybody kind of understand what we're doing in the mortgage space. You're obviously in a special ads category, and I'll bet most of you probably are aware of dealing with that in some capacity at your company, which means social media treats you very differently. And it feels like you're very limited on how you can advertise to folks. At the same time, I think everyone, especially in the last couple of years, has realized how much information social media really has on everyone. And we can still leverage that to get in front of the right person. So whether, again, this could be for purchase home loans, so getting in front of somebody that may be shopping around on, and that's kind of what this example is, maybe on Trulia or Bing or Zillow or Redfin, and some of those areas where they're looking for homes. We can identify those folks and still get in front of them to say, hey, let's get that pre-approval process knocked out before you start your home buying process. So there's a lot of incredible tools that, even though you're in a special ads category, that you can leverage to make sure that you get in front of the right people. A big part of that is pixel data, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds to scare you here, but essentially it's a little snippet of code that goes on websites, and you can find out when somebody submitted on that site. The data feeds back to Facebook, where their AI can say, we want to find more of this similar trait individual. So that kind of overrides those special ads category problems that you might deal with in regards to getting in front of the right type of person. And that ultimately generates lookalikes, and that goes off of their signals and behaviors, meaning what they're looking into. So if they're looking at rates, be a perfect time to put refinance campaigns in front of them. If they're looking at Redfin, it's a perfect time to put purchase home loan ideas in front of them, or that pre-approval process. Or if you want to use this for recruiting, which I'm sure John can probably touch on here in a little bit, there's some really cool tools that we can use in regards to recruiting as well. So you can really leverage social media to make sure that you get in front of the right individual, and it kind of goes beyond, sort of the boosting, which I think is where everyone sort of starts, where they go, hey, I'll post something on my page, and then it's, hey, I'll boost it on my page, to really getting into the full-fledged tools that are out there and available to get in front of the right individuals, to where, you know, the same kind of technology that you sometimes see something and you're like, wow, I mean, I feel like I was just thinking about that. I just saw an ad. So that's the kind of targeting tools that you want to make sure that you're implementing. As far as platforms go in the mortgage world, it's very similar to a lot of the other industries that we're in. I think Facebook Suite is about as effective as it can get between Facebook and Instagram, their audience network, which is tens of thousands of mobile apps and websites. So if somebody's not spending time on social media, don't worry about it. You can get in front of them if they're on Associated Press or Wall Street Journal or anything in between. That's what's comprised of the audience network. Again, kind of like if you put something in your shopping cart on Amazon and then it just kind of follows you everywhere you go. That's how that works. And then Messenger and LinkedIn, which are really cool, and how we can leverage those to get in front of prospects and ultimately get them to engage. So we believe that this area is as effective as it gets. About 78% of people out there say that social media in some capacity influences their buying decisions, which is probably scary. And just recently, with everything going on with coronavirus, the average person spends a little over 2.5 hours a day on social media, which is even scarier. But all these things really add up to an incredible opportunity. And I think that you see this, you know, in that industry in regards to, you know, Rocket Mortgage and maybe others out there that are really kind of breaking out of the traditional mold of mortgage, and then kind of going into something that might be a little bit more unique, and giving them an opportunity to get to that consumer first, just like John talked about. Making sure that you have creative that stands out, not just sharing articles, but use motion graphics. Do something that pops in Instagram stories or some of those placements. I think this next one has a little bit of audio, so I'll turn it down, but this is something we did for SunWest in regards to recruiting underwriters, that was kind of talking about the art of underwriting. And so really coming up with a unique way. It doesn't have to be so you know, kind of cut and dry.
Ooh, that's really neat. Let me ask you a question on that.
Yeah.
That's really neat. This is an interstitial inside of what somebody's browsing?
So this would be, if this could appear just about anywhere. So if it's they're surfing through Instagram stories, bam, all of a sudden in between, you know, seeing their friends' stories, a full screen of this can pop up. This could be displayed anywhere from Facebook to Instagram, and also that audience network like I talked about. But trying to come up with a little bit more of a unique way to engage with them. I think we all, you know, when you're browsing, you kind of know what's an ad and what's not. So you got to be a little bit more creative in how you display your brand and get in front of people, which is really something that we're firm believers of. You can make anything cool, whether it's mortgage or franchise development or anything in between. You can make it cool if you've got the right graphic designer to kind of put together some of these thoughts and design it out.
And Cassidy, is that your sweet spot? Is that really what you do a lot of?
Yeah, so we've got it here in Carlsbad, California, which is where I'm based out of in the office. We've got a full team of graphic designers that build these type of assets, including the one you just saw here, for our clients. So it really is kind of a white glove service, what we do, which is to build the assets, put together all the targeting. No one has to really get involved in doing anything other than to say, hey, here's what I'm trying to achieve. And for sure. So, I mean, that's what our company does all day. We've got a whole desk. In fact, from my spot in the office, I look out over a desk full of creative designers that have a bunch of Legos on their table, and they just design these type of assets all day long.
You were talking about, Cassidy, you were talking about recruiting, which I thought was kind of funny. I mean, this SunWest ad, that's a recruitment. I mean, if you're a loan officer and you're seeing that and that's your competition, you might as well just join them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to show you here, and John, we'll get to John, because I want to kick this back to John in regards to this, because we do a lot with John for refinance and purchase home loan, but I actually think that we probably spend more time and effort and energy for SunWest in recruiting, which is really cool, some of the things that we do. So I'll touch on a few of these things, and we'll get back to the recruiting. But right within the ad experience, you can have lead forms that you can have people select their information. It auto-populates their lead data. You can make it really interactive and simple for the user, instead of sending them to a website where they're going to get lost and it maybe takes forever for them to figure out where to fill out their information. And I'll skip back to this actually one more time just so you can get a little bit of a visual of it. But right within the ad, so when they click on the ad, you can trigger some of this information where they can pre-select some of their details, and this can be completely customized. All this auto-populating, meaning they don't have to sit there and type it out. It works a lot like Apple Pay, where it just fills it out for them, and then ultimately redirects them to wherever you want to go. So you're not just really placing ads in front of the right people and targeting them, but also making the user experience incredibly smooth, because over 90% of all traffic these days is mobile. So you got to remember that people aren't sitting there on a computer and where it's nice and easy. You got to make it mobile friendly, and that's what this whole process can be. One of the other fun things is doing chatbots, and where you can have the ad go right into a messenger bot, where you can even trigger like a messenger conversation where people can, I mean, this all being machine learning that talks through conversations with them, but to walk them through sort of the details of, you know, what's their zip code or what's their name and email and what are they looking into. And all this stuff integrates into Optify Now, where the second they start filling this stuff out, it flows into Optify Now, triggers those automated SMS and email campaigns, and even going right into a call center. So
are you telling me that John is leveraging this with his unique loan officer by zip code that he pulls in to do the live chat?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Am I leveraging it?
So you use this. So if I'm covering Carlsbad, a lead comes in from Carlsbad, I'm automatically chatting with that person in Carlsbad?
Yeah.
For sure.
Wow. Very nice job.
And a lot of it too is LinkedIn for recruiting, just like we talked about with recruiting. And John can attest to this. We do a lot in LinkedIn, from where you reach out from your own profile to prospects, get them engaged, and still this information flows into Optify Now. So you can trigger, if you wanted to trigger automation. It's just the future. I mean, this is how things work. And I guess, John, if you want to touch on a little bit of how we leverage LinkedIn, I mean, in the recruiting realm, you know, you certainly feel free to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously recruiting is a big, you know, it's a big thing for production leaders, right? And loan originators aren't going to be recruiting loan officers, but they will be recruiting realtors. So you could use this for whoever your target audience is. And this LinkedIn thing has been a game changer for us. And so if there's anybody on this call that's gotten a message from me in the last couple of months, it was actually not really for me, even though that sounds impersonal. I still engage in the messaging, but these leads flow directly into Optify Now as well. So, you know, it's been a game changer for recruiting. You know, it's unbelievable. It's been amazing. If there's anybody out there that's recruiting, or if you're trying to go out and find new referral partners, realtors, financial planners, anything like that, you can target anybody and do the social media and the LinkedIn marketing. And it goes directly into Optify Now, which then triggers all of your specific nurture campaigns, and you build those. So you know, it says whatever you want it to say, and it goes out whenever you want it to go out.
Thanks, John. And with that, I'll pass it off to Lynn. I mean, I know I talked about how it seamlessly integrates, but I'll pass it off to Lynn, and he can sort of elaborate on sort of that handoff. But it really is instant, you know, from when somebody engages right to flowing into Optify Now and triggering that automation. But I'll let Lynn kind of jump in and take it from there.
Yeah, thanks, Cassidy. So I think what's the important lesson here is that, yes, I mean, you know, Cassidy, you know, has an amazing tool that I think can bring in the lead. And obviously John is the strategic mastermind in terms of building a whole process around it. But from a tactical standpoint, you know, the key here is you got to sustain that lead. You know, it's one thing to get their attention and to engage with them, but you know, as soon as that engagement occurs, you want to be able to sustain it so that you have the highest possible chance of conversion. And that's really sort of our role in this process specifically, right? You know, as soon as these leads are generated by Cassidy's product, it comes into, you know, our system via an API integration. And what Sunwest has done is they've set up a bunch of different sequences, both on the SMS and the email side, right? So being able to create that sustainable conversation and engagement with whoever it is, whether it's a borrower, a realtor, or an LO recruit, that's really where you're going to get your payoff, because very rarely are you going to get someone that's going to buy right away, right, or is going to convert right away. So not only doing the sustained engagement, but doing it in a way that's efficient, so that your loan officers or your recruiters, don't have to actually actively be a part of that engagement. I think that's what's really attractive to SunWest and a lot of our clients, that this is happening automatically. This is invisible to your end user, be it the loan officer or the recruiter. All they know is that at some point, if this conversion process does work, they're going to get some type of direct engagement with that end user, right? And in the instance of SunWest, what you can see is that not only do we do the email and the SMS as a part of that sustained engagement, we also employ a call center, an outbound call center service as well, which is probably the most effective and most impactful way of sustaining and really pushing that lead to a conversion. So as soon as the lead comes in, we can deploy these sequences, which may occur over a period of 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, however long that nurture campaign has to be, to bring that person back and inspire that sort of engagement. But getting someone on the phone to actually go out and call directly to that target, that is your most effective way. And in the model that SunWest is presenting, there is an outbound third-party call center that immediately gets assigned a lead that is generated by C-Squared Social. And so they're deployed to start making those calls, as many calls as it takes to get an actual contact. And in some cases, some models, what we see is that once they get the actual engagement on the phone with the borrower or the target user, it can either be a warm transfer, so there could be a live transfer between that call center service directly to a loan officer, or it's a scheduling. It's a scheduling of a meeting with the loan officer. So again, the concept is really about, focusing on conversion. And then, the larger scope of this, beyond this process, and I think, Cassidy mentioned it before, and so did John, this is not that hard to do. I think that's the larger story we're trying to tell. The hard part was, of course, having the brains of John Brumman, right, coming up with this process. But finding those partners was not as difficult as it may have been in the past. You think about some large lenders that have this concept, and they go to the extent of investing and building it organically and taking who knows how long, right? And how many failures, how many millions of dollars. But in today's day and age, with vendors, quite frankly, like us and like C-Squared Social, lots of third-party outbound call service centers that are out there, there are vendors ready to deploy this in a very short period of time. But critical to that is more than just having the software, more than just having this innovation. Really critical to that is also having the service that comes along with it. John mentioned it lightly, before that, hey, from his standpoint, he was looking for a CRM system that he didn't have to invest a lot of his own internal resources to get up and running. And we all know what it takes to get a CRM up and running. There's tons of configuration. There's tons of internal planning in terms of workflow, and there's always ongoing maintenance and incremental changes to the CRM that needs to be done. And in most cases, yes, a lot of larger lenders, they hire someone who's an expert in that CRM, and they have to pay that person, $70,000, $80,000 a year. And there's a lot of different steps that take place to get certain changes implemented. In this model of what Cassie mentioned before, it's a white glove service model where the technology is there, but you also have the service that comes alongside it. So when John comes to us and tells us, Lynn, we want this sort of email campaign to go out, and here are sort of the steps that we want it to take, he doesn't have to train someone on his staff to actually build that within the CRM. He relies on us, right, as a provider of not only the CRM technology, but also the CRM administration. And so being able to offload that big chunk of resources to really maximize, or if I may call it optify, the utilization of the CRM takes a large burden, both from a resource and a cost standpoint off of lenders like John. And the same thing with C-Squared Social. I think it's true within the mortgage space, as I've been in this mortgage space for 20 odd years. Mortgage lenders are not very good at social media. I'm not very good at social media. I can post a meme, right? And I can make Karen jokes, but you know, quite frankly, you know, social media
No, you
is
should stay
heavily
on social media, dude.
I know I should, but social media is not really well utilized by mortgage lenders when you compare it to other retail type of businesses. And so we're really at the cusp, you know, with technology like Cassidy's, you know, lenders really are on the cusp of tapping into just a vast network, a vast pool of, you know, untapped potential for generating business that lenders really need to get behind. And I think that's really the larger sort of message that we're saying within this webinar.
Great.
It's not just that, you know, SunWest has this really cool tool. No, it's that overall thinking outside of the box, right? In terms of how to utilize social media beyond memes, right? Beyond just, you know, funny little, you know, statements or inspirational quotes to actually generate leads itself. That's really sort of the main story. And you can see exactly how C Squared Social does this.
Mm-hmm.
And from our role, right, as a CRM, you know, look, you know, Joe knows I come from the LOS space. Most people know I come from the LOS space. When I look at how the CRM and the automated marketing systems are evolving, they really are becoming very similar to a CRM. I'm sorry, very similar to an LOS, where it's beyond just, you know, having a CRM that does something. No, it's really, again, building that technology stack, just like with your LOS, right? You have your LOS as the core, but then you custom build your own stack via APIs and integrations of different vendors. And that's the beautiful thing, right? That there's so many vendors out there that are readily available that can plug in very easily. And one of the hallmarks of what we do at Optify now is help our lenders build those sort of custom marketing technology stacks.
That's great. Good stuff, Len. Really good. Do we want to kick it back to John? We got 10 minutes left. I want to make sure we answer some of these questions that are coming in. Cassidy, did you want to chime in on top of Lynn and throw anything else in there, or did you want to take it back to John? You know, which way you want to go with this?
This is John. I had a couple extra points I wanted to make. I'll make them quick.
Great.
Just listening to these guys talk. So one of the things that I didn't mention was the integration of lead providers. That's always a challenge when you're working with a CRM. And by the way, when I think of CRM, I think of, you know, in process and closed loans, right? Optify now is the only system that I know of that does lead management, which is different than traditional CRM functionality. But the integration of the lead providers, I mean, these guys have been unbelievable. We get them done in it's days. If I call up and say, I've got a new lead provider, I need to integrate. I mean, within 2 days, it's done, depending on the lead provider and the really accessibility there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're totally integrated with our LOS as well. I don't know. I think I mentioned that before, but you know, those are a couple things that I forgot to mention.
Well, John, I think you have a unique thing, and part of the questions that came in is that you have kind of a unique business model because you don't have an off-the-shelf LOS that Lynn's normally easy to work with, but you built your own, right? And so there was an extra unique challenge for Optify Now to handle your implementation. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes. That was you know, but it was done. I mean, on the Optify Now side, it was a piece of cake. You know, I think it was a little bit at the time. It was a little bit more of a challenge for us to integrate, but it's been done and works well.
That's great. That's great. And John, you know, I know you're kind of using you know, this situation too for recruiting as well. But one of the questions we got is there any other use cases that you're using this for today besides recruiting, origination, and post closing?
Just wholesale and realtor marketing.
Right.
So
realtor marketing.
yeah, so
okay.
we use it for wholesale. We use our loan officers use it for you know, finding and nurturing real estate agents that they want to work with in their markets.
What would you say, John, is your monthly budget when you outsource your social media presence? How much you allocate for that, or how much is it costing you per loan officer, or what's a good number that people should take from this?
Oh, that's a tough one.
That's a question from the field, so it wasn't for me.
Yeah. So yeah, well, that's a good question. It's just hard to answer.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. I know.
It really depends on, you know, what the needs are, right? I mean, you know, we've got different budgets for everything that we do. So we've got a budget for the realtor campaigns. We've got a budget for the recruiting campaigns. I mean, it just depends on to what scale. We're in 48 states, right? So we're doing this all over the country. And so our budget may not be, representative of what somebody else may want. So, I mean, I can tell you this, that it's very reasonable. I mean, Cassidy's solution and Lynn's solution are very, very reasonable. As a matter of fact, they're less expensive than anything else that I've used.
Okay, when you get a lead that's been generated from your creative, that's gone through the Optify Now calls them, sets it up for one of your loan officers. Do you pass that home buyer connect lead on to the loan officer, and do you charge them for that?
So what we do, and this is a unique business model. So we have an internal sales team, because what we realize is that, traditional retail loan officers aren't going to sit behind a phone all day and answer calls from, or make outbound calls to leads, right? So their strengths are going out and building relationships. So we actually hired different people to take the leads and to nurture the leads internally. We get them pre-qualified and pre-approved with those loan officers. And then we pass them off to our outside loan officers after they've already been totally vetted or pre-approved. And there's no charge, but there is reduced comp. And the whole point of that model, just if I'm giving up my secret sauce now, but the whole point of that model for me is to create a unique value proposition so that the loan officers can go out to the realtor partners and say, look, I'm going to give you buyers.
Right.
The only thing that I'd ask in return is, let's partner, right? If I'm going to give you my buyers, I'd like to take a shot at your buyers, right? So that was the entire reason we did Home Buyer Connect.
Yeah, quid pro quo.
No quid pro quo. Definitely not quid pro quo. No. I mean, so we technically, yeah, there's compliance. You've got to be careful, right? How you do that. Of course, you can't say I'm going to give you something for something in return. It's I can refer you to a couple different realtors in this market.
John, how did you discover C-Squared Social and Optify Now? Was it just your tenacity and trying to solve this problem, or how did you run across these two characters?
That's a funny story. I got to make it quick because I'm running out of time. So I own a frozen yogurt business, kind of like a Menchie's or a Yogurt Land. And
one of my kids works at Menchie's.
Oh, there you go. So I own one. We built it. It's not a franchise, but one of my vendors actually referred me to Cassidy at C-Squared for my yogurt shop. And the thing, his marketing worked so well. I asked him, I couldn't believe it. Every time he did an ad, I was getting people, having the best days that I'd ever had. And I know this is weird and totally unrelated to the mortgage business, but I asked Cassidy, I said, hey, do you work with, any mortgage companies? He said, no. He said, I work with real estate companies though. And I said, oh, well, how does that work? And he goes, oh, it works amazing. We get, 250, 300 leads a month for these realtors. I said, oh, well, that's the same client that I want. So maybe we can tweak those ads a little bit, and and that's how it started. That's how I met Cassidy, and it just kind of evolved from there. And we've been using it ever since. I mean, it's he's been a tremendous partner. And as far as Optify Now goes, I've got a friend who owns a mortgage company who uses Lending QB, and this guy's an attorney. He's a very smart gentleman. He's very analytical, and when he researches something, he goes all in. He doesn't think that very many systems out there are very good. And he actually called me and said, hey, you really need to take a look at Optify Now. I took a look at this thing and it's amazing. I think it'd be a good system for you. Mm-hmm. And that's how I met Lynn and John at Optify Now. And,
that's great.
And
hey, Lynn, we got a question for you here. And it was great, and thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate it. And one of the things I think that you brought up during your session was how the differences that are happening now between the CRMs and the LOSs. And it seems like the advancements that you're making on the CRM side and the technology you're doing on that side, it's just blowing away how fast the LOs can keep up. Could you elaborate the difference between what you're seeing in the marketplace related to that? You made a great point earlier. I just wanted to bring it up for everybody here attending.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to being able to let lenders, think outside of the box. I mean, you think about that story that John just told about, how he got to know C Squared Social through his yogurt business, right? And sort of that cross-pollination of, social media marketing techniques from a retail, a restaurant retail to mortgage lending. And our role, as a CRM is, look, if there is a great solution that is focused on generating leads or enhances your ability to generate leads or market, our goal as a CRM is to be able to incorporate that as part of your overall sales process, right? So having a very open API and having multiple methods of integrating with a variety of systems, that's really the key of what we're trying to provide. And again, do it in this white glove sort of a proposition where, look, you come to us and you say, we think this is going to work and this is something that we want to try. We're game. We want to be able to integrate
sounds like, if I give you a lead post API, you hook it up in one day.
Exactly. So, we're just catching, all these different funnels that mortgage lenders put out there, right? Be it, on a distributed sort of model, or be it on a wholesale model, or be it on a social media driven model. We're just that funnel. And again, engagement, right? Continuous engagement from the standpoint of deploying different email and SMS marketing campaigns, and again, connecting to a third-party call service, right? I mean, again, we have a lot of experience working with call center services and the types of phone systems they use. We just plug it into our CRM. We are that database of record on the sales front-end sales side, much like the LOS, right, is a database of record on the operational side.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you everyone for attending. That'll be it for our questions so far. Contact us directly. Gave you the contact information and everything else. We have the Mortgage Innovator Conference for 2020 coming up. We schedule it for August 17th and 18th of this year. So please pay attention to that. We're going to virtually do it as much as we possibly can. We're going to send you a survey. We would love it if you complete our survey. That would be just outstanding if you could do that for us. And thanks for joining the webinar today. This has been a product of the California MBA. And I can't even tell you that I think this was so perfect because our committee is about mortgage technology and marketing, and this session knocked it out of the park. And to make it all possible, thank you to Tavant for being our sponsor today. And thank you very much. And have a great rest of your week. Thank you very much.